Happy holidays, everyone. This is Amy Cooper with RISE, and RISE is the young professionals group for the insurance industry. If you're not already involved in RISE or in one of our committees, you can head over to riseprofessionals.com. If you've missed any of our previous webinars this year, you can check out the RISE YouTube for recordings, and also stay tuned for the D&I Committee's release of the Off the Record podcast at the start of the new year. We're excited for 2021, and we know you all are too, as we look to the new year and strategize over how to prioritize diversity and inclusion in your talent strategy. We're pleased to present this panel today, moderated by Chelsea Midlarsky, Head of Recruitment for Insure National. As you're listening, if you have questions, you can enter them in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen, and our panel will answer them at the end. And with that, welcome, Chelsea. I'll turn it over to you to introduce our panel today.
Thank you, Amy, and hi to everyone that's here on the webinar. Thank you to our amazing panelists. So I'll announce them first. So we have Abel Travis with us, who is the Vice President of Fundamental Underwriters at AF Group. We have Shannon Harjer, Vice President of Personal Lines at Founders Insurance. We have Faith Mason, Senior Manager Workers' Compensation Claims at Comcast NBC Universal. And we have Eric Afre, who is the Senior Director, Compliance Investigation, Financial Crimes Unit at Allianz Life Insurance Company. So thank you guys for joining us. We have a lot to talk about, specifically around diversity and inclusion in the insurance space, which is something that's, been talked about a lot, very important, as historically insurance companies haven't appeared to be or seem to be the most diverse organizations. So I put a list of some questions together. Anyone that does have questions themselves, please put it in the Q&A as we can address those afterwards. But hopefully this is really informative for everyone on the call, as well as for myself as recruiter in the industry, to see what people are doing to help with diversity inclusion. So I guess I'm going to kick it off with, and I'll address this to really everyone. What are some values that are important to your companies when you're looking for diversity to fit into those values?
Well, Chelsea, I'll start it off, and by the way, thank you for the opportunity just to talk about this very important topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and really helping us shape, how this can impact the insurance industry and bringing in talent into organizations. When I think about some of the values that we have within our organization, and as you mentioned, I work for AF Group, we've actually built out what's known as our market shaper core values, and that really entails the values of excellence and efficiency and integrity and innovation. And when we think about the, where diversity, equity, and inclusion fits in, it really fits in under the guise and under that value of innovation. When we look at what inclusion means, it's really the involvement and the empowerment of the people within the organization. And, when you have an inclusive organization, I think it promotes and sustains that sense of belonging, which will, have people that are aligned with those values that I mentioned really want to continue to exude those values. That's going to lead to, the outside success of an organization. So, for AF Group, those core values are key. Most, if not all, employees try to align themselves with that value, and diversity, equity, inclusion becomes a critical part in the way that we operate as an organization.
No, and I think that the innovation part is really key, because I think as an industry, we're finally seeing a lot of new innovation coming to the insurance space, the way that it was coming to the financial markets. So what are you seeing in terms of innovation? How is innovation playing a key role when you're looking for diversity? Is that a big part of getting those innovations to your company?
It actually is. When we think about innovation, it becomes something that's extremely important from a core value perspective. It creates sort of that ingenuity that you want from individuals that you're hoping to hire within the organization. So, there was a study that I read by the Boston Consulting Group, and it was also published through Forbes, and it stated something to the effect of, 19% or diverse management teams drive 19% more revenue due to the innovation that brings on. That's the diversity of the people, the different backgrounds that they come from, the diversity of thought that represents. Those different experiences I think fosters a different way of really not only engaging with the other employees internally, but as a reminder, within the insurance industry, we don't just serve a homogeneous group of people. So the customers that we're serving are truly a diverse set of customers, whereby, if you're taking it from the perspective of homogeneous or, homogeneity, whatever you call it, I think it could potentially limit the relation of what we're delivering to our customer base, and the effects of what can be gotten from an innovative culture. For me, as I think about it, it really links really well to a business goal, and really driving that increase in revenue. And that's where I think it's very important.
Yeah.
So, yeah, please, Faith, continue.
I was going to say Abel is completely true. I mean, we know from studies that, the more diverse your team, the more diverse your company, the better your company performs. Our customers come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. And just as an organization, diversity is one of our major initiatives. It cuts through every piece of our business because we recognize the diversity in team gets us better results with our customers and even internally, right? We may be serving internal customers. I know from a Comcast NBC Universal perspective, our employees are our customers because that's how workers' comp works. And the better my team is able to connect with those individuals as they're going to have their claims, that's what, bigger and better results. So the more diverse the team, the better the results are for the company overall. And that is shown through the studies, and you can see it in the results for our claims.
Yeah. So I think we all can agree that it definitely fosters innovation by having diversity in the workplace. How do you, and Shannon or Eric, how do you build diversity in your workforce and at your company?
Yeah, I think for us here, and specifically me as a leader and within the organization, kind of to Abel and Faith, right? Understanding the mission and the vision of your organization. And I think we can all agree that our organization's diversity is one of the basic pillars in our core values, right? Building that culture internally is the main start. You cannot build innovation without internally having that diverse culture of thought, process, or even experiences, because that's when you combine those, is you're creating a safe environment to fail. And I always say that, until you bring together a different thought and 3 different experiences, you're going to be more aptitude to fail and then be okay with it and succeed from that. Secondly, the way we do it is purposeful. You have to be purposeful on really having champions in regards to buy-in into leadership, and also strategically you have to implement those pillars to be successful in this initiative.
Well, to that front, are there any programs or processes that your companies have put into place to help foster that? And I will include that in your recruiting processes. How are you, anything that's supporting that diverse workforce that you're building as a program or a process?
We definitely do in my organization. And, it starts with just, the basic principle of respect. And when we're looking at, talent coming in, our existing talent, the decisions that we make as a business, especially the diverse market that my company serves, we have to kind of, sit back and say, what are our customer needs and our employee needs? And really we base it on those principles that we follow as an organization. We expect that behavior from the top down, and we hold each other accountable. And, that's part of the accountability piece. It's the uncomfortable, sometimes awkward piece that you have to go through as a leader, is to hold people accountable to that piece, because it's sometimes a very touchy subject when we talk about diversity, but it's definitely, you know, that's our role, and that's why we have these missions and vision statements and pillars here and there. We've got all those nice things, but it's the actions and behaviors that, you know, from the top down that we show and demonstrate, not just through, you know, words, but actions matter. People see that, and if they can't see us connecting back to all of those things that we put together on paper, it doesn't go anywhere. To my peers' points out there, it just doesn't go anywhere unless you really stand for it and, you know, exemplify that.
Well, I think it's great that we have a group of leaders on the call, because I'm very interested to know, you know, as a manager, how are you managing the diversity and how are in the workplace? And I also want to know, with this being a very crazy year and everyone being virtual, how are you managing diversity, especially in this virtual work environment? Have there been any changes from that front?
Now, let me understand the question in regards to the recruiting of diverse talent.
No, so now that you're managing your teams, how are you managing diversity in the workplace? So how are you dealing with that diversity, especially as you're working in a virtual work environment? You know, how are you?
Difficult. Yeah. So for us, I think the one unique thing that I've found is everything is built off what we call the D&I Committee. Internally, we have a D&I committee that really is providing resources for not only employees, but for leaders, having those understandings of different cultures and generational gaps. You know, one of the things that I have found that as we evolve as an insurance and financial industry is you're going to have this generational gap, and understanding their needs and wants are very different. And for leaders, we have to really sit back and lead kind of with some culture intelligence training. And this is what we're going through right now for leaders, is understanding how to lead through culture intelligence, right? What does that really mean? Understanding the generational gaps in communication, what are their triggers, also understanding the whys and how why work, you know, someone works differently than the other, but kind of connecting the dots. And we, at the end of the day, we're going to connect the dots and be a team. So that's kind of one of the things that we've done here.
And, you know, I'll also jump in, you know, because I just remember whenever I hear about, you know, diversity, equity, inclusion, and making sure that people feel included and managers are also managing it appropriately, it just brings me back to a story. So when I was in college, I worked for, I did an internship with a company called Xerox that maybe many people are familiar with. And I worked for someone named Ursula Burns. And if you all aren't familiar with Ursula Burns, she's the first African-American woman to lead a Fortune 500 company, and that company was Xerox. And one of the things that she would always tell me and other people in the organization was, you know, Abel, you know, if you're going to come and if you're going to participate and be a part of our organization, I want you to bring your whole self to work. Really bring your authentic self to work and don't hide your authentic self, because when you're doing that, you're partitioning who you are away from the value that your experiences can bring to the organization that you work for. In that instance, that can bring to Xerox, which of course, in the end, what we talked about a little bit earlier, you know, bringing all of that together leads to that level of innovation that's going to have a tangible impact to your bottom line. You know, so when I hear that, it just always reminds me of that story. And that is also the recommendation that I give people, is to bring your authentic self to work so you can feel comfortable in your skin, in the environment that you're in, that you're in. Now, even with that said, you know, while you're doing your part, I do feel that the organization has to do their part as well in order to make everyone feel included. So there are things that we do in AF Group, like cultural competency training, for example, that helps us really understand the different cultures within our organization, and you know how we can better engage, as well as ensure that we're integrating those cultures into the organizations, and then also establishing things like employee resource networks and other things that these individuals can align themselves to in order to be able to bring their authentic selves into the work environment.
Abel, what you said just kind of gave me chills about just bringing your authentic self to work. that wasn't a comfortable subject for years for people to say. And I honestly, I've worked in many places where I didn't feel like I could be my authentic self. I had my Shannon work and I had my Shannon at home and with friends. And, and now I feel, obviously more able to be myself and definitely, I want others to feel like that. There's nothing worse than working in an environment or joining an organization where you cannot be yourself. And that's such a burden to have on your shoulders, and to understand people expect something different of you. And that's just a horrible way to go into work for 8, 10, 12 hours a day and have that wearing on you all day. It definitely, it impacts your motivation. It motivates, your willingness to go above and beyond for that organization, your willingness to even just participate. That's just something that folks have got to realize, that, when we make decisions, even about food days, as simple as that is something that definitely is something, you want to talk about cultural awareness. You want to talk about just people from different means and what they can contribute, what they can't contribute, that public shaming and all that kind of stuff that goes on with those types of events. It's just the awareness. It's one thing about working from home, and sorry if I'm jumping ahead there, Chelsea, but one of the things that I was reading, I don't know if any of you subscribe to the HR magazine. I got my paper copy yesterday because I still get that because I like to read those. But there are some really good articles in there this issue, and one of them speaks to the inequities of working from home, whether it be employees not having the money to have the high internet speed that's required for their job. But they still could show up at the office, but of course we can't have them there. So now are we holding that against them because they aren't in that same area or ability to pay for that? Or comments that get made on social media about people's backgrounds. I mean, we were joking before, we were talking a little bit before we started this conversation about things going on. But some people, that could be something that, they're truly bring their authentic self to you. You're in my home right now. All of you are in my home. But, having the appreciation for those with children who have kids sitting 5 feet away trying to, do schoolwork there, and things happening. I live in a rather urban setting. You may hear the fire department come down the road. It just happens. But it's that cultural sensitivity. It's that understanding of this is a new age where we've now been inviting people into our homes and critiquing us based upon certain things that are maybe within our control, but that's our authentic self. And so we have to be very aware of the disparity that's going to happen when we return to the office, because some people may not, and opportunities, and that gap widens for people, some people who could return, some people who couldn't, or made that choice not to. Folks who decided to stay home with kids or relatives or whoever it may be. We have to be very cognizant of the new age we're going into, as in the coming months and years. But bringing your authentic self to work, I don't want anybody to come to work other than who they are. It's something that I find exciting to meet different people. I've now been on 2 panels with Abel. I've gotten to know him. It's just now you continually get to meet and learn from other people, and that's what it should be about. And I just Abel, thank you for bringing that up, because that's so meaningful.
Yeah, and I think in terms of bringing your authentic self, I am curious to ask you specifically, and to everyone, for RISE, being that it's for young professionals, a lot of young professionals are joining organizations and they're afraid to show their authentic self. They're afraid to, they think it's going to hurt their career, their promotions. How are you encouraging your team to show their authentic self? And then what do you think it is that's enabled you to show your authentic self and not feel the fear of it potentially harming you in your career?
I can't say with any honesty that it didn't harm my career.
I was going to say that too, Shannon. I think that part of what we have to do as management teams or managers in general is to make sure that we are creating a safe space.
Yeah.
So I will speak for myself personally. I do believe in the beginning part of my career, I was not bringing my authentic self to work because I did see other folks who brought their authentic self to work that I thought was very similar to my authentic self, and they were not rewarded for that. So I think it's all about the environment in which you work and the companies that you work for and the management teams that are there. This is what diversity and inclusion needs to be something that's coming from the top down, but embraced by those middle managers, the ones who are really the gatekeepers of success within the organization. And for myself, I create an environment for my team, local today, where they feel that comfortable. They come to me and speak to what Shannon was talking about. Maybe there is a child care issue, a parent issue, right? Because I'm dealing with a group of folks that is moving from young in age, but all the way up into senior in age. So I want to know, I want to make them feel as though they are the most comfortable when they're speaking to me, so they feel that they can be their authentic self, even in spaces when I'm not there. So I think as managers, it is our job to make sure that we are, one, bringing our authentic self to work if we're working in environments that are really dedicated to diversity and inclusion, but being allied to everyone there. Maybe that's as simple as having your pronouns listed in your email signature, or really talking to your different team members about what's their family tradition, because that gets you into who they are as a person and where they come from a cultural sensitivity perspective. I think that it is our job as the management teams, especially when we're looking for hiring, to understand diversity, but bring ourselves to work and recognize that there is a fear out there for people who have seen it go the opposite way.
For young professionals that are interviewing, looking at companies that they want to be a part of, and they've decided that they like the insurance industry, they're seeing the innovation, they're seeing this idea that a lot of the larger companies have diversity and inclusion. What are some things that they can ask in interviews that they could, or that you look for when you're interviewing people, that can help them determine whether your companies are the right fit for them, that's going to allow them to bring their authentic self and have that diversity and inclusion, and not just be a saying that they're saying?
One of the things that I've done in the past when looking for organizations that I want to be part of, and really here's the thing. Understand that when you're going into job interviews, look at it as you are the source and what they're looking for. You are the value. You are the source of value that these companies want. That's number one. Why do I say that? What kind of company is it that you want to be part of? Do your research, okay? Do they have, as simple as this, you'll be surprised, because I've done this. You'll be surprised at how many organizations don't have as simple as a core value statement. That would bring questions to me. And it's okay to ask, what are your core values within the organization? I was doing some research and couldn't find really the core values. Why is that important? Because I would assume that those core values you carry with you, whether is you're going to work for X, Y, and Z or not. Those are values that you carry within. So whether you're going to work for a Fortune 100 company or a Fortune 1000 company, that should not matter. For me, it's more important about what the company stands for and what those values are, because I want to make sure that those values are aligned with mine.
I think they should also ask about, do you have ERGs? Do you have employee resource groups, right? Are there opportunities within those groups to branch out into other departments so that I can not only diversify myself from what my personal skill set is, but within the organization to be able to network? Are there support networks there? those are things that I would ask, as well as, what are your hiring practices? Are there goals set towards hiring women, LGBTQ, towards disabled, veterans, people of color? Does your company support those efforts? Or that company is using the employees that are coming in.
Oh, sorry, Abel. Yeah, please.
No, sorry. I was just going to add to that because, even as we explore even deeper what some of the values are of the organization, right? If there's a core value statement, if there are other things that they do value, you also, as you're interviewing, to come into an organization, you want to make sure that it aligns closely to your values, but also it's one that's going to be accepting of your culture. So I think about things like in questions like, well, hey, is there a flexibility in the workplace, right? Because there are some people that may celebrate specific holidays, and if an organization is open to allowing them to take the time for the purposes of celebrating those holidays, right? That might be an organization that better closely aligns with the values of that individual. There are also other questions that might not necessarily be related directly to the job, but related more towards the expected treatment that an individual will get based on things within the organization, just as simple as a wellness program, right? So when you think about pregnancy, and I'll use African-American women as the example, they tend not to get the same level of focus as other cultures, during the time in which they're pregnant. And there's an opportunity in a lot of the wellness programs to have specific things within the programs that are focused towards specific cultures. And not a lot of organizations take the opportunity to have a very specific culturally based wellness program or benefit program that's going to help people that are coming in from a multitude of cultures feel as if that they're also being catered to, and not just the majority within that organization. So, while it may not be directly linked to the job that you're going for, it will make you feel as if you're valued as you're coming into that organization.
Abel, on top of that, knowing that a lot of people are hired in now virtually, what is their onboarding process? What are their expectations for you working from home? What are the hours even? Because, for example, I have individuals who work in Colorado, Arizona. For me, I sit here in Chicago. It's important, when you're asking questions, to know that. I mean, what's the expectation? I work my hours on my time zone, or don't I? But also those expectations of how, and there's a lot of ways, you probably asked this, but this has been something that I'm concerned with is, you're, part of an organization where some people are in the office and some people work from home. Are the benefits the same? What's the treatment like? Is it different because, I'm going to walk into my boss's office and schmooze with them a little bit more maybe, and when you're working from home, you don't have that luxury. And so if I go out for an hour lunch instead of my, 45 minutes, nobody makes a big deal about it in the office. But if I'm working from home and now I'm on some sort of system where they can see how long I've been away from my phone, I've now been treated differently. And so it's something that, as coming into an organization, it's important to understand that environment. Go out and look and find people who work in those roles that you're applying for. LinkedIn is a great resource to reach out and talk to people. Some people will open up and tell you things. Other times it's just understanding, someone said, understand the company you're interviewing with. Do your research. For example, claims jobs are not meant for everyone. Customer service is part of it, but also, you need to understand that, looking at, especially I'm in a non-standard environment, we have a lot of negotiating that goes on, a lot of confrontational type things happen, and that's part of the job. Ask those questions. What is a day in the life of a claim rep, Shannon? And I will tell you, I'm a brutally honest person, so I try not to scare folks away because it's a great job. It really is, but it's not for everybody, but that's okay. We have other roles in different departments for folks. But one of the things, if you're looking at leadership roles, I just wanted to make sure people understand when they go in and you're interviewing for a leadership job, you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. You have to look at the person who's hiring you and ask yourself, could I work for this person? Do they have shared values that I have? And one of the things, the one question that I ask almost every single person, well, at least I have in the last few years that I've gone to work for, is tell me a time when you shared a project, when you had to share a project or goal with your team and build a shared purpose. Because I want to know if that person is going to build up the team or if they're going to tell the team. I want to know, are they invested in this, or are they just passing it off for us to wither away on the vine and not understand what we're doing? I want to know how they communicate. I want to know their passion. And it really, when they start to answer those questions, you start to really build that idea of who you're going to go in and work for. You know, because it tells you a lot about their leadership style. They can tell you all day long that, you know, they're a collaborator and use those big buzzwords, but you want examples. You want people to tell you how things really are. And sometimes, unfortunately, you find out later that it's not true, but it's at least, you know, given you that opportunity to ask that question. But, you know, that's something also that mentorship, people can help you before you go into those interviews. And, you know, that's a good thing with RISE. You know, we have mentoring opportunities. We have, you know, all of these members out there happy to help and you know, that you can ask any question to. So it's really important that you do your research, but also prep yourself and realize not every job is meant for you, and it's okay.
That's true. And one more thing that I want to add that's very important, because especially when we're in these larger corporations and you're doing the sort of panel-like interview session, is there anyone that's representative of me? Am I being interviewed by someone who looks like me, who sounds like me, who has the cultural identity as me? Because that also kind of clues you in to whether or not that's going to be a company that is inclusive for you, for a person like you. So it's and I think that's something for companies to remember as well. When you're trying to hire diverse talent, you may want to have them interviewed by your diverse talent, because it's very off-putting to be in those very large panel-like interview sessions and no one looks like you.
That's a good point. And I'm going to talk a lot about, or ask more questions around the mentoring. But one of the things that just from a personal perspective, and a question that I have more of an industry whole, I get reached out to by a lot of hiring managers who say to me, I want someone who is diverse. Here's this job. Please don't just give me one type of person. I want diversity. And as a recruiter and as a, you know, someone who's trying to help bring these people to the table, I think industry have done a great job, and we're trending towards finding more diverse people to get into our industry. But sometimes there's not as much diversity out there that we would like. So outside of your organizations, what are you doing? What is your company doing? What do you think the insurance the whole is doing so that we actually have those diverse candidates to bring into these roles, and not just once that, you know, they're in your organization, we're fostering them? What are we doing to move the industry into that direction that we can bring them for you?
Yeah, great question. I think one of the things that I find fascinating through my career, different organizations have done different things, but one of the things that come into mind is right now, you know, is leading outward. Okay, where are you investing outside of the realm of the specific culture that you want to target? Providing those opportunities to giving monetary like grants for specific targeted areas where resources not really available to them, but also this gets your brand out, right? Not only the brand, but you're investing in the future on your pipeline, continuing to find those network organizations, kind of like RISE, right? There's many of those out there that organizations are investing in to really build up that talent and pipeline to bring in for the future. Furthermore, leading outward is important, but also leading internally is another thing, right? Investing in people is one of the core values here as well. So just because I'm in the financial crimes unit here, they're going to probably identify those diverse talents and say, hey, you also have skill sets in, I don't know, legal or other areas where you can start building that acumen internally as well. So you can have that double-edged sword saying, not only are we building externally, but we're also building it out internally, if that makes sense.
You know, I think it does. And, you know, I want to add to that because, so I guess the first thing that I want to say is, you know, so whenever I hear anyone, manager, anyone internal outside of the insurance industry say that there isn't enough diverse talent out there, I always say you're not looking hard enough.
Yep.
Exactly.
There is diverse talent everywhere. And I'm not just talking about low-level talent, you know, when you look across, you know, the insurance industry, even when you look external to the insurance industry, you'll find really highly educated, intelligent people that have the intellectual curiosity to do this job, potentially even better than people that's been in your organization and what they're doing, you know. And you know, I always say, I can tell you where a company's priorities are based on where they spend their money. You know, are they spending the same amount of dollars to recruit diverse talent in the same way that they're spending dollars to recruit talents that's not necessarily focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion? You know, are they using resources such as what RISE produces, or, you know, are they partnering with diverse colleges and universities, HBCUs, other diverse colleges and university to go out and find the talent that's specific to the needs within that organization? You know, I like to look at the insurance industry as just not an industry made up of insurance experts, right? When you look at the different job types that's here within the insurance industry, you have marketing, you have communications, as well as underwriting and actuaries, you know, you have attorneys, right? And just as a reminder, all of those industries have diverse people that are already working within those disciplines. So are you only looking internal to the insurance industry, or could you find a broader access to people that are super talented that represents the diversity that you're trying to bring into your organization from other industries and other organizations, and bring them into the insurance industry to cultivate you know, that talent and you know, and really start to change the diverse makeup of what we're seeing in the insurance industry. So, you know, just to go back, there's diverse talent everywhere. We just have to make sure we're doing what's right in order to identify and bring them into the industry.
Absolutely. And I wanted to touch on what Abel was saying. I think there's an opportunity here for us as an insurance industry, because I don't think we look outside of the box enough. I know that every single insurance company I've ever worked for, they're always looking for who's got a risk management program. Let me partner with this college or university that has a risk management program or a risk management fraternity. That is limiting us. There's an opportunity for us to partner with HBCUs, as Abel just mentioned, to partner with sororities and fraternities that are of ethnic minorities, to be able to partner with alumni associations of those same ethnic minorities, because they're out there and that talent is out there. We need to stop looking in the box that is just marked risk management or just marked insurance, because we are a very diverse industry within our small little pocket of insurance, and there is absolutely talent everywhere. Sorry, I think I cut you off, Shannon. I apologize.
No. You said perfectly. There's a chat in here about once you're inside. So you've got the job, now you're inside. And that is a huge issue. Attracting and getting somebody to accept an offer is great. A lot of companies still have a long way to go to know what to do with you. You know, they see you, but you know, sometimes we talk about having that seat at the table but no voice. Sometimes you have a voice but you're not seen. And so it's one of those things that, and you know, for years the insurance industry was a male-dominated type thing, and especially in some of the organizations I worked in, you would look above and it would be all white men, right? It would just be this whole up here, and you know, the highest woman in the group would maybe max out at a AVP of claims, for example, in my, you know, genre of the world. And, you know, is that as high as you could go? Is that the aspirations, you know, that you want in your new hires, to say, well, that's all I can do here? But yeah, when you get in, it is a huge deal. Your onboarding is just as important as your selection for an opportunity. They should take it just as seriously as you did to leave your current employer to join them. You took it seriously, but those are questions about what is your onboarding process like? Do you have a formal mentoring program? It's important for you to know those things going in, and if can they show you anything? If you're able to be there in person, can you go and walk the floor? I know some companies don't let you just for privacy reasons and such, but what can they do? But it still goes back to, what do they do when they have you? And unfortunately, sometimes you find out once you get there, and that's I'll tell you, the disappointment is raw. It hurts personally, and I will tell you, and I'm just being honest here, is just you sit down and you think, what did I just do? And that is the time that I leaned heavily upon the people that my supporters and my advocates, and said, I learned from the opportunity is what happened. And I knew I wasn't going to change them, but I had the opportunity to change myself. And it really was eye-opening for me. Because again, I couldn't be my authentic self, and why they wanted me, I don't know. But it's not something that I want to go and ask about or anything like that. And of course, that's way in the past. But today, as you sit back, you have to have your eyes open, and that's why researching employers, going out on social media and looking at the leadership team, just not the boardroom, but Faith mentioned earlier, the middle level management. It's really important that you take a look at that. Those are the people that are going to decide whether or not you're going to be eligible for promotion when you get inside, right? So if they don't look like you, if they don't have the same values as you do, that's a hard road. That's a really hard road. And so it's something that you have, when you make a career move, when you decide to take a role, it's a serious decision. And you never have to make it alone. There's people like us out there that are more than happy to, listen and give advice, and, definitely have other contacts to help you out. But prepare yourself, you always prepare and go in with your eyes open.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I do think, ensuring that you retain the diverse talent to the point that you all made, as you bring them into the organization is just as important. It just reminds me, I've actually left an organization because of comments that were made, just about me in terms of who I am. And those comments were, I remember vividly, hey, Abel, you don't look like a leader, what the leaders look like in this industry. Abel, you don't sound like what the people that lead this industry sound like. Now, that individual didn't go into all of the details as to what exactly he meant by that, but I knew exactly what was meant by that commentary, right? And frankly, I think a lot of that bias is still present within the insurance industry. It might not be, it might not be, on the forefront every single day, but there's some bias there, and you see that as a part of the hiring process. You see that play out when you look at the leadership within an organization at all levels as to whether or not people from diverse categories and backgrounds are being promoted into leadership, and so on and so forth. And really, so I look at it at two parts. I do think that there's a responsibility on the company to make sure that that talent is being developed, that talent is being elevated, that people are using their voices in support of the underrepresented communities. I also put it back on the talented people to ensure that they're doing their part within the organization as well, right? In order to, not unfortunately fall into some of the categories that it's really unfortunate that people may align them to. So, are they, doing their jobs in the way that the jobs should be done, right? Are they very vocal in getting a mentor or really even an ally that can act as a mentor? Because I think that allyship really supercharges the ability for individuals to be a mentor towards those underrepresented communities and towards diverse communities. And then what are you also doing to ensure that that people can understand you and your background and sort of the things that you've been through as well? So I try to look at it from both perspectives. But yeah, personally for me, I've left organizations because of that. Even as I look back at those organizations, they still aren't representative of a diverse and inclusive environment. And it's sad to say.
One of the other pieces that sometimes you're fortunate enough to be able to see who is the sponsor of certain ERGs or ARGs at the organization. Look at that. That tells you how dedicated some of those executives and leadership team members or leaders are towards really supporting and advocating for those ARGs.
Well, I'm encouraged to see, because I agree with Faith and I agree with Abel. I think that insurance has looked for talent inside of a box. And I like the idea of looking at other industries, other places that we can pull talent from. And I'm encouraged that people are, looking at ways to do that. I do have a question for your organizations. If there's any kind of tangible goals that your organizations have surrounding diversity, equality, and inclusion, and who's responsible for making sure that the goals are met? Abel, I know that you mentioned you could talk about this a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, within our organization, there are absolutely requirements. So first and foremost, when we talk about hiring, we actually have what's known as the diverse hiring pool requirement, right? So what that means is that at minimum 50% of the applicants that are applying for a specific job has to be made up of diverse candidates, right? I mean, that's one thing, and we cannot start the interview process until that metric is met, right? So that way, we don't have someone that's been in the organization for a long time that knows someone else. Because as a reminder, and we said this a little bit earlier, typically when we tend to reach out to other people to come into our organizations, we're reaching out to people that look like us. So at this point, what we're doing is ensuring that we're giving diverse candidates a seat at the table, so that they can put themselves up and really show that they have what it takes to get the job. And that's really transformed the way as an organization, that we hire, and we've seen so much more diversity, at least in our organization, in so many different ranks across the company. So that's one tangible thing that we're doing. When it comes to who's responsible for it, I say, typically, there's the HR, and that there's even the D&I group, but really I bring it back to, it starts at the top with the leadership, and then it should fall down into the rest of the organization so that everyone becomes responsible for creating a diverse pool of not only of candidates you're bringing into the organization, but also an equitable pool or bringing equity to your organization, right? I think one other thing, and it was mentioned a little bit earlier, I think Faith mentioned this, when we're hiring for individuals, we can no longer have a homogenous hiring slate. Is there diversity on that hiring slate? Some people from underrepresented communities, whether, someone that might be a woman or someone that doesn't necessarily represent the majority. And that has to be the makeup, as well as ensuring that there are objective criteria in which we're assessing the candidates against, so then someone isn't taking their own perspective and then applying that to whether or not they would want to bring that individual into the organization. So for us, those are some tangible things that we're doing, and we've seen some real results come up that.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on Abel in regards to that as well. Those are one of the tangible things, the strategic that we are finding as well and committing to as leadership. Who is responsible? Yeah, I know this is kind of tacky, but we all are. And I feel like even within my team, I tell my team, you got to hold me accountable for these things, because I want to lead by example. So there have been some opportunities where I've been given some feedback from my own team saying, hey, we talked about this. Another thing that I think is really that I want to discuss is we've committed as an organization that not only each leader, but associate to take some of our culture awareness training. I think those are measured and tangible things that, as a team, as a leader, you can influence that and participate on some of the trainings that Allianz has provided to educate and bring awareness in certain different topics of D&I. So I found that refreshing that we've done here internally, and I'll give it to any other panelist that has another.
Yeah. So from our side, we do have some very tangible goals, and they've been in place for a little while. So it's 50% female and 30% or 33% person of color. And that kind of filters down throughout the whole organization. And to Eric's point and Abel's point a little earlier, it is everyone's responsibility, really, if we want to have a diverse, inclusive environment that is also filled with belonging. One of the other things, and my sister happens to be a diversity recruiter, and one of the things that she mentions during a lot of her mentoring and teaching to the folks that go out as the hiring managers is to make sure that you have tangible ways of measuring talent, because a lot of times our bias creeps in when we are kind of trying to figure out, can I go to happy hour with this person, or is this somebody that I can sit down and have a beer with? And that's not really whether somebody's a good actuary, right? Or whether that person's going to be a good claims professional. And we've got to take some of that out of the process in order to be able to create these very diverse environments, and also to foster safe space, because one should not be being evaluated as to whether or not he or she or they is the best person to go out to lunch with, but is that person the right person to do the job? So if we can get into the habit of creating very tangible, very concrete ways of evaluating talent across the board, as opposed to deciding whether or not you can be a friend with someone, after work. Not saying that, culture is important, right? Every business has its own culture, but if we can kind of strip away some of our own bias when we're doing those interviews as hiring managers, we will create some of that safe and inclusive environment that we want to see at our companies.
One thing on top of that, Faith, is the pre-employment testing. I am not a math whiz by any stretch. And those tests stress me out like nobody's business. Bringing back fractions 30 years later is not fair. I've been doing this for 23 plus years. I deal with percentages, not fractions. Nobody has asked me to go out there and measure anything without resources and the software to do it. So, but I think that that's something that you touch upon of just even, are they a fit for me? Some companies have goals, or, when you do those pre-employment tests, that you have to be within a certain area, or they're going to ask you more questions to really figure out why you didn't score higher. That happens. And I'll tell you, it's very unfortunate, because not everybody's a good test taker. Regardless of what's behind me, I am not. This all started after I was about 30 years old, and because I had to figure out how I test. Some people are not able to do that type of thing. And when we're doing pre-employment testing, there's not, you give the same test to somebody who's coming in for claims versus underwriting. That's not fair. Not only that, but maybe you're interviewing them for a processor position, not a specialist position, but they get the same test, but you want them to score the same amount. Or you have just this preconceived notion about how people might answer, even the subjective type stuff of how you feel about certain things. Well, maybe something in your background, because, we all have different experiences and everything in our past, make you answer something differently. That should never be a major portion of anyone's hiring period. I'm very hesitant when I do look at those. I look to make sure you just didn't blow through and just not do it. But, at the same time, everybody can try, but again, not everybody's a great test taker. Not everybody had the experience in their background to learn how to take tests. Now that we're asking people to do it virtually, not everybody has a quiet, safe, private place to do it. There's a lot of different factors. And I think that those tests put a lot of people at a disadvantage. And it's sad to know that a lot of very good, diverse talent has not made it to that next pool just because of a test score.
Yeah, no, I gotta say, I agree with you 100%. Because when you think about it, a fish could be a superstar in water, but as soon as you take them out of the water and you put them on land, all of a sudden they're going to start to flounder, right?
Yeah.
And I say that because, you can directly equate that with the potential bias that might be in this pre-employment testing. Is that testing more aligned with a certain cultural attribute that one culture may, test better towards than another culture? And is that done in a way that folks from other cultures may not necessarily be able to be superstars at or to be successful in, right? So I've never really aligned with pre-employment testing that isn't done in a way that's truly objective, right? So I think that's one thing, and I do want to go back to one of the things we mentioned in regards to like responsibility, and something that I mentioned is, hey, everyone is responsible, and there should be requirements that people hit the targets that were set for them around diverse hiring, and creating an equitable environments. But I always remember managers, for example, if there's a tangible thing that's going to hurt someone for not aligning with those requirements, maybe you put a requirement in regards to the bonus, right? So if you don't hit this level of hiring, if your group isn't diverse, by these metrics, by X, Y, and Z time, then that's a factor that's taken away from your bonus. We do that all day and every day for business results. We can make this a part of requirements in order to deliver outsized business results in a way that people will then actually align themselves with and really feel the pain if they don't deliver it. Because I know for me, if I don't deliver my results, I surely feel the pain in my bonus at the end of the year. It's just, I don't know, it's just one way I think it's tangible that as an industry, we can implement.
Well, I have to just say that I found this extremely helpful. So I'm sure everyone else on the panel or on the call is going to find it helpful as well. We have 5 minutes left, so I want to get some of the questions. So I'm just quickly, because I know that we've talked about mentoring a bit. I think joining organizations like Rise and getting to meet people like yourself and hear everybody's, different takes on the industry and how to project yourself through this marketplace, both from a young professional and from people that are trying to advance themselves in their career. Just a plug to Rise. I love seeing things like this, and I'm sure everyone feels the same way, but just want to get to some of the questions that we have. One of them has asked, how does your organization define diversity? And if so, how is it defined? Anyone?
I'll jump in there. So diversity is defined by is everyone actually, and so people are probably going to hear that and think that that's a crazy statement, but it really is. So diversity also includes white men, and Black women and disabled folks and veterans and LGBTQ. So that is how our company defines diversity. Now, when they're looking at targeted hires, that'll be slightly different. So they're going to be looking specifically at women and people of color. But in general, like my own personal feelings, diversity encompasses all of us, because we can't have a single opinion sort of running the whole world.
Yeah, Faith, you're absolutely right. There's one thing that I always say. I mean, there's 7.5 billion people in this world, which means there's 7.5 billion definitions of what diversity, equity, inclusion means to everyone.
Yep.
So to your point, Faith, everyone has a definition for it, and an organization might have their specific definition, but we have to remember that it may not necessarily align with the employees and the people within that organization.
Someone just really quickly wrote, how do I apply for employment with Rise? Rise is a free organization. Please join. We have different webinars, and the more that we can do this, the better. I think this is going to help with diversity and inclusion in the industry as well. And then just as a last question, because I know Shannon wrote back, but what if your company is trying to change its industry reputation and attract more diverse talent? What steps would you recommend implementing to find that talent? I know we've kind of talked about this, but just if anyone has anything specific that they can.
Yeah, I think to my earlier point, my suggestion and recommendation would be, hey, be purposeful and lead outward. Invest in your community. Wherever your organization is at, find those targeted communities where you know that you're going to target. And here's the important part, not target, guys. I know that's a very harsh word, but you're going to provide this diverse community the opportunity and platform to flourish.
Yeah.
That's how you lead as your organization and impact outward.
Well, we're getting such good questions that are coming in. I want to answer all of them, but we're getting to the end. So I just want to let everyone know if you have additional questions, hopefully we can ask the panel and we can send them via email, but please send those questions to hello@riseprofessionals.com. Thank you, everybody. Shannon, Abel, Faith, Eric, appreciate it more than you know. It's so helpful. And thank you guys all for taking the time to do this.
Chelsea,
Thank you.
thank you
Thanks
as
for having
well.
us.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right, everybody, chat soon and have a great rest of your day.
You too. Bye, guys.